grid. But this type of technology, the technology to avoid this type of disaster does exist. So why aren't we using it to upgrade the nation's electrical grid? Peter Vincent Pry, Executive Director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, says it is a matter of politics.
And Dr. Pry joins us right now. Dr. Pry, we thank you for taking time to be with us today on America's Forum.
Well, thank you for having me to talk about this esoteric but vitally important subject.
When I first got to Congress, three of the first initials I heard, Dr. Pry, were EMP. Now, it sounds like the stuff of science fiction, but it is science fact. Could you elaborate for us what an EMP-caused blackout would bring about, how it would happen?
Sure. An EMP can be caused by Mother Nature, by the sun. A solar flare striking the Earth's magnetosphere will generate a geomagnetic storm or an electromagnetic pulse, which is basically it's like a super energetic radio wave that has so much energy in it that it will couple into electronics, collapse electric grids, destroy everything depends directly or indirectly upon electricity. And so within 72 hours, the blackout of the electrical infrastructure is collapsed. And basically, our electronic society gets cast back to pre-electronic days. You can do the same thing with a nuclear weapon, detonated at high altitude, above the atmosphere, above an altitude of 30 kilometers. If you were to detonate a nuclear weapon, let's say 300 kilometers over the center of the United States, you might not even see it if it were a cloudy day. You wouldn't hear it. It would be too far away. There wouldn't be any blast or thermal effects experienced on the ground. The only thing it would produce would be this electromagnetic pulse. But it would cover the entire continental United States, collapse the electric grids everywhere, and couple into small things. Cars wouldn't start, your personal computers would fail. And this is not just an inconvenience. An EMP of these sorts caused by the sun or caused by a nuclear weapon would be protracted, permanent, given our current situation. It could last years. And we can't survive, even for a year, without electricity. The EMP Commission on which I served estimated that given our current unpreparedness, within a year of a natural or nuclear EMP event that caused a national blackout, we could lose up to 9 to 10 of Americans from starvation, disease, and societal collapse. It's basically a high-tech means of killing people the old-fashioned way. And we know this is why Iran wants the bomb. North Korea has the capability to do this. In fact, we think they have a super EMP nuclear weapon. And it is in the contingency plans of Russia and China as well to do nuclear EMP attacks in the United States.
Well, when we hear this from you, Dr. Pry, and the dire consequences, and especially those who have designs on getting their hands on nuclear devices that could result in an EMP over the continental United States, what's stopping us from taking action? Politics, pure and simple, or break it down for us in your opinion, Dr. Pry?
Sure. Well, I can assure you it is the politics. It isn't the technology. We've known for 50 years how to protect against EMP events in the Department of Defense. When I was worked in the CIA, there was a time when the things we're talking about now were deeply classified. The commission on which I served declassified much of this, so now we can talk about it in the open. But there such things as Faraday cages, and surge arresters, and blocking devices can be utilized to protect against the EMP. And it's not expensive either. We estimated that it would cost about $2 billion, that's billion with a B, to protect the national electric grid, 10 to 20 billion to protect all the critical infrastructures. But $2 billion is what we give away every year in foreign aid to Pakistan. Surely we can afford that on a one-time expenditure to protect 9 of 10 American lives. The problem is called the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, which is basically, it's supposed to be the organization to provide for the reliability of the electric grid, but it's really a lobby for the 3,000 electric utilities. They don't want bills passed at the national level, like the GRID Act or the SHIELD Act, that are currently in front of Congress, and which would empower the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to require them to harden the grid. They don't want the government to have this additional regulatory authority. And that's the problem. And Washington is so broken that all you have to do is buy 1 or 2 people on the right committee. In this case, it's the House Energy and Commerce Committee. And even though there's broad bipartisan support, we We actually got the Grid Act through the House of Representatives once. Everybody voted for it, Republicans and Democrats alike. But one senator stopped it and held it up, and that's basically the problem. You know, Washington is so broken, you can thwart the will of the Congress if you just get the right person on the right committee, and you can hold things up. And they've successfully held things up for nearly half a decade now.
Well, Dr. Pry, let's name names. Who was the one senator that was able to thwart the bipartisan, near unanimous sentiment of the U.S. House of Representatives?
Well, I still have to work with these people, and I've been told that it was a mistake, and that if we can get the bill over to the Senate side, that it won't happen again. So I don't want to name names, so you'll forgive me for doing so.
Well, you're being a diplomat, and we should point out that one of the customs of the Senate is any one of the 100 can place a legislative hold on any bill for any reason, and there's a veritable cloak of anonymity at work there too. But we appreciate, Dr. Pry, your efforts at diplomacy. It's our job on this side of the camera to ask some of those questions. John Bachman, you've got an interrogative for the good doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Pry, we talked about this in the past, but to bring it up again, when this was last before the Senate, I remember talking to former Senator Joseph Lieberman, who was trying to spearhead the effort, I believe, if I remember correctly, to get this passed through the Senate. After it failed, he expressed a lot of frustrations and basically said, in order for anything like this to actually pass Congress, we're going to unfortunately have to have some sort of major event to get the political will to do this. Is that what you believe as well? There's nothing short of an attack that's going to make this happen?
If I did believe that, I would move my family to Belize, because the consequences would be so catastrophic that that there will be no second chance. There is a bright side to this. While Washington is broken, my task force has gone to the states, and other grassroots movements have gone to the states, and we've been having success there. We just started last February. We found a state representative, Andrea Boland, a liberal Democrat in the state of Maine, who was willing to spearhead an EMP initiative in her state. And you can island a state grid, by the way, even though it's part of a larger regional grid. If you put on the blocking devices and surge arresters, they don't affect the way the grid would operate on a normal basis. But if an EMP happens, and this would also protect you, by the way, against cyber attacks and physical sabotage, such as happened out at Metcalf. So it's an all-hazards kind of a strategy. But it would island your grid so the lights would stay on. In Maine, Maine passed that. The governor signed it into law. Maine is on its way to becoming the first state in the union that might protect its grid. Virginia, early this year, passed another initiative that was signed into law by the governor. Florida is taking steps. There's interest in Oklahoma and Utah. So the states are getting frustrated with the lack of action in Washington as they become educated about this existential threat. They are taking initiatives that hopefully will solve the problem. If we have to, we'll go to every state in the union and do it one state at a time. I hope we don't have to do that. I hope that if we can get a few states getting the ball rolling, that it might break the logjam in Washington.
Yeah, reoccurring theme there for a lot of issues, including this one, going to the states for action.
One quick question, Doctor. How clear and present is this danger? What's the likelihood, say, because you mentioned even a solar flare can create this, what's the likelihood that, say, in the next 5 to 10 years, that we could see a major event that would cause a regional or even a massive national outage as far as our electric grid goes?
If we do nothing to protect our grid, I think it's almost a certainty. Iran is within 2 months of getting the bomb, according to the administration. I personally believe they already have the bomb, and the only reason that they haven't struck us yet is because of their obscure eschatological reasons about the return of the 12th Imam. They look for signs and portents about when to do this. The North Koreans, don't forget we had a nuclear crisis with North Korea just last February, March, and April, where they were threatening to make a nuclear missile strike on us. And on the very day that the mysterious attempted sabotage of the Metcalf transformer substation in California happened, North Korea's KSM-3 satellite was over the Washington, D.C., New York corridor, the perfect location and altitude for taking out the eastern grid with an EMP attack. It might have been a larger dry run for what North Korea, Iran, Russia, and China all describe as a all-out cyber warfare operation. In their doctrine, in their military doctrine, cyber warfare is not limited to computer viruses and hacking. It includes things like Metcalf-type assaults, physical sabotage, all the way up to nuclear EMP attack.
Well,
And you had
Dr.
all of
Pry,
those elements.
you have sounded the alarm in much the same way Paul Revere did. Of course, he used the lanterns. We need our electrical grid, we need our electrical power, but we thank you, sir, torturing this metaphor perhaps, to shed some light on EMP and the very real hazards. We appreciate your evaluation of that. So what about EMP and the threat? Does this surprise you? Why don't you tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum, and we're coming right back.